This is the Senate oversight, I guess the Senate intelligence hearing from today. We're about to hear from Mark Warner. I believe he's a senator from Virginia, I believe. And you're gonna be hearing also from Tulsi Gabbard, who is the director of intelligence, of national intelligence. I think she's her title. They typically call her like the DNI. I don't. Anyway, so you're going to hear earlier in the hearing, and I would encourage everybody, this was today, by the way, I would encourage everybody to listen to it. But earlier in the hearing, Mark Warner, the senator from Virginia, talked about, in his opening statements, talked about how he feels like the intelligence community is being directed or to suppress any information in their reports about how foreign countries, kind of like forecasting how countries may impact our elections. He said that in the past, up until like 2017, that was always included, but that recently it's been missing from the intelligence reports. So,
thank you, Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Gabbard, the whole country knows that you were recently involved in an FBI operation to seize ballots in Fulton County, Georgia. Yet this was despite the fact that the warrant showed no foreign interference or nexus. Matter of fact, the warrant was based entirely on conspiracy.
So he's making the point basically like Tulsi Gabbard, why would you have been there? This had nothing to do with like foreign interference. If you missed it, what happened was the FBI showed up at Fulton County, Georgia, and had a warrant to take all of the ballots from the 2020 election. So President Trump wants to once again relitigate the 2020 election, because in his mind, he has made himself believe that he won. So we get to pay for another investigation, and probably will continue until he gets the answer he wants. Because he's like a 2-year-old and he has tantrums. But Tulsi Gabbard was there at Fulton County, and she really had no place to be there because this had nothing to do with foreign interference. And intelligence is related to, the whole intelligence community is really related to foreign intelligence.
Theories that have already been examined and rejected repeatedly. Now, where is the authority for you to involve yourself in a domestic law enforcement activity?
Thank you, Vice Chairman. I appreciate the question. As you know, I've addressed every issue you've raised in detail in a letter, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to do it in this forum. As you stated, Congress provided by statute ODNI with the responsibility of election security and counterintelligence in 2021. As you also know, ODNI has purview and oversight.
I know the history very well, but could you just
I am addressing the question. ODNI also has purview and overview over 2 domestic related agencies, the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI, both of which have purview over election security responsibilities to ensure the integrity of our elections. I want to correct one of your statements that you've made multiple times, which is false. I did not participate in a law enforcement activity, nor would I, because that does not exist within my authorities.
You were present on the scene. Are the photos of you on the scene false?
I was at Fulton County, sir, at the request of the president, and to work with the FBI to observe this action that had long been awaited. I was not aware of what was in the warrant or was not in the warrant.
And what was the president's specific request for you to go to? What was the specific request that was made by the president for you to show up in Fulton County?
To go and observe the FBI's activities on this issue.
So why?
When you look at the four,
do you have the answer why the president was knowing about this affidavit before it was even served?
I'm not aware that the president knew about an affidavit before it was served.
Then why was he sending you to Fulton County?
This occurred the day that the FBI had it approved, their warrant approved by a local judge, and they began to execute this. To
Director
address your
Gabbard.
question, sir, about the foreign nexus question, in order for us to better understand the vulnerabilities in our election systems that may exist today as we look to 2026, and yes, we are very focused on trying to make sure that this election is one that the American people have
Director
faith.
Gabbard, I've got a number of
count their
questions.
votes
Director
as
Gabbard,
cast.
I have a number of questions. Let me ask my next question, please. You have not provided any of the required reports or briefings to this committee on foreign interference. This is the first threat assessment since 2017 that didn't even mention foreign interference. Last year.
So I got that wrong. What he's saying is that this is the first time since 2017 that the intelligence report didn't include foreign intelligence information. Intelligence information regarding possible foreign interference in our elections. So this is the first time.
When you were in already confirmed, it mentioned it at high level. Are you saying there is no foreign threat to our elections in the midterms this year?
As I stated in the outset of my remarks, this year's annual threat assessment matches the prioritization of threats and
Please answer the
focus
question, yes or no. Is there foreign threat interference
that
to
the
our
president
elections this
has
year?
laid out.
Are there foreign?
Please allow me to answer the question, sir. The intelligence community has been and continues to remain focused on any collection
not
of
answering.
intelligence
Ma'am,
products that
ma'am,
show a potential
ma'am.
foreign threat for those who are
So
seeking
far
to
there has been none then because you've
in
made
our
no
election
reports.
system.
Excuse me, ma'am. If you want to ask the questions, you should have stayed in Congress. Please answer the questions.
I didn't ask you a question, sir. I'm trying to answer your questions.
So you're saying the failure to provide any reports or the failure to have any mention of a foreign threat assessment, I would draw the conclusion there must be no foreign threat to our elections in 26. So that brings me a question that I have for both you, ma'am, and Director Patel. There are reports that in 2020, the president was preparing an executive order to potentially seize ballots or bring in federal forces. There is a published report that there is a similar EO being drafted right now about 2026, citing China. Director Patel, do you have any knowledge of that draft EO?
Thank you, Vice Chairman. I do not, sir.
Director Gabbard, do you have?
So Senator Warner right now is warning us, basically, that they're already scheming about how to cause havoc and chaos during the 26 midterms, because President Trump is scared to death of losing the House and the Senate and/or the Senate, and he is going to try to cast doubt as much as he can on the midterms. And so I guess there's already a published report that there's a draft EO executive order holding ballots, keeping the election from being able to basically be certified, the midterms. And Senator Warner is warning us now. So when you hear President Trump, because there's no mention of, risk or Chinese interference in our next the midterm elections later this year. There's no mention of that in the intelligence report. When Trump brings it up at midterms, so November, December, October, January, around that time at the end of this year, when he brings it up that China interfered in our election, or there's evidence that China interfered in our election, you'll recall this video where I pointed out that Senator Warner warned us that this is a scheme that is in process right now. He's trying to steal the midterms, not Senator Warner, Trump.
Any?
I do not.
Thank you. Let me move to Iran. Now, I understand, and I appreciated Director Gabbard, your comments yesterday about agreeing that the president has sole authority, I guess, in his bones to declare whether something is an imminent threat. I didn't agree with your friend, Mr. Kent, but I agreed with him yesterday on the fact that there was no imminent threat. I guess what I'm concerned about, one thing is, even in your printed testimony today on page 6, And your last paragraph on page 6, as a result of Operation Midnight Hammer, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated. There's been no efforts to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. You omitted that paragraph from your oral opening. Was that because the president had said there was an imminent threat 2 weeks?
No, sir, I recognize that the time.
So I'm going to go back a little bit so you can hear this again. But basically, Senator Warner is saying that when Tulsi Gabbard was giving, she was earlier in the hearing, she was giving her summary. Basically, she was reading the summary of the intelligence report for 2026. At the beginning of every year, the intelligence community puts together a report regarding kind of forecasted, projected concerns, which actually has some really interesting information that I'll probably do another video about, but regarding Iran. But that when she was reading that summary, she left out the part of the summary that said that Iran didn't have nuclear weapons. They had been obliterated when we bombed them back in March. She left that out. She skipped over it. And what Tulsi is about to say is, I just did that. I left it out for, for time's sake, that I was running long. That's a real interesting thing to leave out. So let me say it again. In this summary of intelligence security concerns for 2026, when Tulsi Gabbard was reading that summary earlier in this hearing today, she left out the part that said that Iran didn't have nuclear weapons and that we had obliterated them when we bombed them back last year. So once again, because this happened last year, Tulsi Gabbard said in her address to the Senate last year, she said Iran didn't have nuclear weapons, and then we bombed them a couple of months later because President Trump said they had nuclear weapons, and we're doing it again.
Oral opening, was that because the president had said, you omitted that
I'll go back a little bit.
But I didn't, again, I agreed with him yesterday on the fact that there was no imminent threat. I guess what I'm concerned about, one thing is, even in your printed testimony today on page 6, and your last paragraph on page 6, as a result of Operation Midnight Hammer, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated. There's been no efforts to try to rebuild their enrichment capability.
Effort.
You omitted that paragraph from your oral opening.
So basically, this report was written and published before Trump started this war a couple of weeks ago with Iran, with the justification that they were just weeks away from having a nuclear weapon. And in that report, that intelligence report, it said that they have made no efforts to rebuild that program.
Was that because the president had said there was an imminent threat 2 weeks?
No, sir, I recognize that the time was running long, and I skipped through some of the portions
So you chose to take
of my oral delivered remarks.
You chose to omit the parts that contradict the president. The president continues to say as well that he had no idea, was shocked that the Iranians had moved to take over the Strait of Hormuz. Did you
He was shocked.
Provide any intelligence that would say that it would be that it was not likely that the Iranians would try to move on the strait?
I'm not aware of those remarks, and I think those of us here at the table can point to the fact that historically the Iranians have always threatened to leverage their control over
Why would the
Strait of
president say
Hormuz.
he was amazed?
I'm not aware of those remarks.
What about the comments the president made that thought that he was surprised again, reports that Iran struck the adjacent Gulf states?
Again, I'm not aware of those remarks.
Why would he think that they wouldn't retaliate? Why would he not care? This is oh my gosh, this is so troubling. He is going off of his gut, like he has said before, his own morality. It has also been said that he has very little patience for like intelligence briefings. He doesn't consult, he just moves. And that's the reason it shocked and amazed him, because in his mind, we are the greatest, strongest military, and we're untouchable, and what we say goes. And so when we go in and we bomb them and kill thousands of their people and obliterate a lot of their military on a lie, by the way, based on a lie, that they're not going to hit back. It's like he didn't even think about the Strait of Hormuz and how that it's not even just impacting us. It's impacting the whole world. President Trump, trusting his gut with no military experience, listening to Bibi Netanyahu in his ear instead of his own intelligence and military communities, got the whole world into this situation. It's dangerous trusting him. He really thought, just like a narcissist, I don't know how many of you guys have dealt with narcissists, but they really think that they can say whatever they want when they're angry or whatever, and you're not going to hit back. It shocks them when you do. And so they come back and they try to hit back 10 times harder, because you weren't supposed to stand up for yourself. He's shocked that they have, basically closed down the Strait of Hormuz and bombed, gone in and attacked the surrounding Gulf countries. Apparently he's amazed, he's surprised, because in his mind, I guess, Iran would just cower and fold. Which brings me to a whole nother topic. Tulsi Gabbard, when she was going over her summary of her intelligence summary, she talked about how that as long as the country, Iran, stays theocratic, stays in that, as long as the regime remains, they will continue to try to rebuild their nuclear programs. And we've already heard, if you've been paying attention, in order for us to, we can kill the supreme leader, but what's going to happen is they're just going to find another supreme leader with similar ideas. It's not like Venezuela when we went in and took Maduro, who was very unpopular, and basically the people who were around him supporting him were only focused on him. It wasn't like it wasn't like they were committed to the country and the idea of the country. They were committed to him. But that is not the case in Iran. The people in that country, sure, you have some that are going out on the street and crying and saying we want our freedom and all of that, but you have just as many in that country who are committed to the ideal of the theocracy of the regime. And it's not just going to fold. It's not going to fold because you kill a leader or several leaders or all the leaders. You're just going to have more rise up. And what you're doing in the meantime is you are creating martyrs and a bunch of terrorists is what you're doing. When you go in there and you bomb a school, killing over 100 schoolgirls ages 7 to 12, which our government still hasn't taken responsibility for. But Tulsi Gabbard in her report said that as long as the regime remains, they're going to continue. So what is it going to? And the only way to get rid of the regime is boots on the ground, which means a lot of Americans will die. For what? For a lie? For a lie. Instead of doing this diplomatically, we're going to put boots on the ground over a lie. At the very least, if not a lie, we don't have, Bibi Netanyahu may have been in his ear saying they were weeks away, that Iran was weeks away from having a nuclear weapon. But clearly, there's some conflicting information from our own intelligence communities. Should we be waging war when we don't have, as President Trump, and this is what happened last year, by the way. President Trump listens to Bibi Netanyahu over his own intelligence community. And people that, like the podcasters that supported him in the past are starting to see that. They're starting to see when you vote in a strong man, that's the way they see him, but you don't see the narcissistic megalomaniac that's behind that, it's going to lead you astray. He hasn't done anything he's promised. As a matter of fact, the things he promised to address, except for the southern border, he has made far worse. The economy. How much fucking money are we spending on these wars? $1 billion a day is what I heard? Over a lie? Over something Bibi Netanyahu said? Bibi Netanyahu also said that it was a dream come true, that he'd been dreaming it for 40 years. This attack that he and Trump did together on Iran.
Let me ask you this. Did you brief the president? Did you brief the president? Did you brief the president if he starts a war of choice, that the likely result would be that Iran would strike adjacent Gulf nations and close the Strait of Hormuz? Did you brief him on those two facts that I think have been consistently the assumptions of the intelligence community?
I have not and won't divulge internal conversations. I will say that those of us within the intelligence community continue to provide the president with all of the best objective intelligence available to inform his decisions.
Read between the lines
Collins.
there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Gabbard.
Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Wake up, MAGA. I know it's hard. This is, Trump and MAGA are a big part of your identity. And it gave you hope. But that hope was based on a lie, lots of lies. It was based on identifying enemies that are not enemies and whipping up hysteria and hate toward those enemies. It's also not just about your opinions, because you supporting him it's devastating our democracy. It's impacting all of us, and not just all of us in this country anymore, all over the world. He is not making us safer, healthier, stronger, richer, wealthier, whatever. He's helping his friends and himself become wealthier. Wake up.